Goblin launch detected.
This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. with free weekly content and free shipping on orders over $150. You can save 5% site-wide by using the promo code MTGMudsta. If you're looking for a direct way to help the channel, please consider joining my Patreon and becoming a member of the generic Goblin Gang. Hey gang, and welcome back. Today's game features Mackenzie, Maximus, and Mika, and myself. Mackenzie has brought his Yarok energy-based deck, keeping a Glint Sleeve Siphoner, Carnivorous Canopy, Forest, Island, Exotic Orchard, Swamp, and an Electrostatic Pummeler. Max is playing his new Zur Enchantments deck, keeping Brave the Sands, Out of the Tombs, Oversold Cemetery, Sajiri Shelter, Terramorphic Expanse, and 2 Plains. Mika is rocking Anje Falkenrath, which is Madness and Discard. He keeps 2 Mountains, Squeak Goblin Nabob, Temple of Malice, Rakdos Guildgate, Terramorphic Expanse, and Sire of Insanity. Last but not least, I'm testing out for the first time my Magus Lucea Kane landfall deck, and I keep Ghost Town, Command Tower, Mystical Tutor, Mountain, Oracle of Moldiah, Skyshroud Ranger, and Mystic Sanctuary. Mackenzie wins the die roll and starts us off. He draws and plays an Exotic Orchard. I play a Command Tower and tap it to cast Skyshroud Ranger. Max plays a Terramorphic Expanse. Mika draws and follows Maximus's example with his own Terramorphic Expanse and passes. Mackenzie draws and plays a Swamp, while Max and Mika by sacrificing their Terramorphic Expanses. Mackenzie then plays a Glint Sleeve Siphoner, gaining 1 energy and passing. I play a Mountain for turn, and then activate the Skyshroud Ranger to put out Ghost Town. I then pay 3 for Tunneling Geopede and pass. Max draws and plays a Plains. He plays Oversold Cemetery, passing. Mika draws and plays a Mountain. 2 mana gets him a Rakdos Signet and he passes. Mackenzie's got an Island for turn, and then plays out the Electrostatic Pummeler and gains 3 more energy. He moves to combat, swinging the Siphoner at Mika to get an additional energy. Mika then takes the 2, and after that, Mackenzie passes. I draw and play a Field of the Dead, which comes in tapped, but deals 1 to everyone thanks to my Tunneling Geopede landfall trigger. I then activate the Skyshroud Ranger to put out Mystic Sanctuary into play, dealing another 1, and passing after that. Maximus draws and plays an Island. He casts Out of the Tombs and passes. Mika's got a Temple of Malice, which comes in tapped, and he scries 1, keeping it on top. He then casts Anje Falkenrath, and with her on the stack, I cast Mystical Tutor to go and find Open the Way. Mackenzie pays 2 energy on his upkeep to draw a card and lose a life, and then draws for turn. He plays a Forest, and follows up with Thassa Deep Dwelling. Going to combat, Mackenzie pokes me for 2 damage and gains an energy, and after that, goes to his end step. He gets the Thassa trigger and flickers the Electrostatic Pummeler, gaining 3 more energy and passing. I draw, and in my main phase, cast Oracle of Moldiah, revealing a mana drain off the top. With no land for turn though, I have to pass. Maximus is Out of the Tombs triggers, and he has 2 counters to it and then mills 2. He then draws for turn and plays a Path of Ancestry. 2 mana gets him Brave the Sands, and he passes. During his end step, Mika activates Anje Falkenrath, discarding Squee Goblin Nabob to draw a card. Mika returns Squee on his upkeep and then draws for turn. He plays a Mountain, and then plays out Archfiend of Ifnir and passes. On his upkeep, Mackenzie pays 2 energy to draw a card and then draws for turn. He plays a Carnivorous Canopy and he targets the Archfiend of Ifnir. This has Mika responding by activating Anja to give all of our creatures -1/-1 as he discards a card. Mackenzie in turn activates the Electrostatic Pummeler to pump it and save it in response. He then follows up with an Aether Poisoner, and then goes to his end step. Once more, he targets the Pummeler with the Thassa trigger, and gains 3 energy as it comes back in, and before leaving the end step, I use the 0 ability on Ghost Town to bounce it back to my hand. I draw, revealing a forest off the top and playing it. I then replay the Ghost Town as my second land for turn, dealing 2 total for the 2 lands coming in. I then cast Open the Way, putting 4 into the X, and I reveal a Polluted Delta, Riverglide Pathway, Alchemist Refuge, and Bloodstained Mire. They come in tapped and deal 4 more to everyone, and also trigger the Fields of the Dead 4 times. I make 4 zombie tokens and pass. Max mills 4, and then draws for turn. He plays a Plains, and then casts his commander, Zur, getting to scry 1 because of the Path of Ancestry. He keeps it on top. He then uses Zur to animate out of the tomes, and goes to combat. He swings at Mika for 3. With nothing else, Max passes. Mika draws and plays a Rakdos Guildgate, but with nothing else, has to pass. Mackenzie just draws for turn, and in his main phase, plays Acidic Slime, which as it enters, destroys my Field of the Dead. He then goes to his end step, and flickers the Pummeler again, gaining some energy, while Mika also decides to get in on this, activating Anja to discard a card, and he uses Madness to cast Curse of Fool's Wisdom after discarding it, enchanting me, and then drawing. I draw and lose 2 while Mika gains 2. I then play out a Hinterland Harbor and a forest off the top of my library, dealing 2 more to everyone. I then cast my commander, Magus Lucea Kane, and pass. Max puts another counter on his tome, and then returns a Cloudstone Cure into his hand thanks to the Oversold Cemetery. He then draws and plays a Swamp for turn. He passes through his steps, and during his end step, Mika once more loots with Squee and Anja, and then moves to take his turn. Mika returns Squee on his upkeep and draws. He plays a Mountain, and then casts Megrim. He follows up with a Plague Reaver, which has Max responding by casting Misty Reflections, and targets his Out of the Tomes, so that the Plague Reaver will come in as a copy of Out of the Tomes instead as well. With nothing else, Mika passes. Mackenzie draws, but has no lands to play and nothing else to do, so he moves to his end step and just flickers the Pummeler. I draw and play a Mountain off the top, dealing 1. I then play another Mountain, dealing another 1, and then crack my fetches to find an island and a third mountain, dealing another 2. Once that's all done, I cast Spellseeker to grab Pull from Tomorrow, and pass after that. On his upkeep, Max mills his 8 and returns Giver of Ruins thanks to the Oversold Cemetery, and then draws for turn. In his main phase, he then plays the Giver of Ruins and casts an Ornithopter of Paradise, passing. During his end step, Mika once more discards Squee to draw a card with Anja, and we move to his turn. Mika returns Squee on his upkeep, and then mills 2 because of his Out of the Tombs, and then draws for turn. He plays Volrath Stronghold before casting Chandra Ablaze. He downticks her, which has each of us discarding our hands and drawing 3. With the ability on the stack, Mackenzie responds by casting Evacuation. I then respond with a Mana Drain and counter the Evacuation. And Max responds to that by using Wrong Turn to give me Anja. We then each discard our hands and draw 3, with Megrim dealing 2 to each of us for each card we discard, plus I lose another 6 and Mika gains 6 because I draw 3 cards. With nothing else, Mika passes. Mackenzie draws and plays an Alchemist Refuge. He then plays an Aetherworks Marvel and activates it, getting a Tameo Completed Sage. He then downticks Tameo for 2 to make a copy of Glint-Sleever Siphoner, and once he's done, passes, flickering his Pummeler and gaining 3 more energy. I draw and tap Lucea Kane to cast Animus Awakening where X is 11, and her ability lets me copy it. Out of the 2 copies, I end up with a total of 13 lands, with each opponent taking 13 thanks to the Geopede, and I also get 2 Valakut triggers, which I use to ping Mackenzie for 6. And once those have resolved, bounce a Stomping Ground and a Mountain, and then replay them. This allows me to deal 6 to Mika this time, as well as an extra 2 to everyone thanks to the Geopede. Moving to combat, I swing my 4 zombies at Mika to take him out. I then cast a migration path and go into my library, finding my last 2 basics to put to field. This has my Geopede dealing 2 to each of my opponents, which is enough to take Mackenzie out, and I deal 3 to Max from Valakut. Max mills his cards from Out of the Tombs, and then the Oversold Cemetery randomly turns Tree of Perdition to his hand. He then plays a Swamp, and animates Brave the Sands and Oversold Cemetery with Zur. Going to combat, he swings everything he can at me, and I take the full hit, with Max gaining some precious life. With nothing else, he passes. I draw and play a Trade Routes, and then use it to bounce 2 mountains to my hand. I replay them, and hit Max with both Valakut triggers and the Geopede, doing a total of 8 damage. I then discard 2 land cards to draw 2 cards, using the Trade Routes' other ability. I then activate the Trade Routes twice to bounce 2 lands back to my hand, and then activate it again to discard them to draw 2. I eventually dig in to solve the equation. I then cast it, and search up Green Sun's Twilight to put to hand, which I then cast, putting 9 into the X after tapping Lucea Kane. This gets copied, and in the first resolution, I get a Fathom Mage and a Forest. And then a second one lets me find a Steam Vents, which, thanks to Valakut and the Geopede, kill Max as it enters. Game review time. So this was a nice change of pace. I've really been enjoying making new decks and testing them out, and although some of them don't stick around, I really enjoyed Magus Lucea Kane. The principle of the deck is basically to cast X spells that will find me lands and either put them to hand or put them to the field. I then have various good landfall abilities that'll help me win the game with a land-based finisher. Mika's Anje Falkenrath deck is pretty typical of what you'd expect from it. It's got lots of ways and lots of things that you want to discard to get maximum value, like we saw with the Squee and the other Madness cards, and my goodness, once that Archfiend of Ifnir hit the field, I was scared. That card can lock down a board state in a discard deck, and that's kinda what Mika was hoping to do. Thankfully, Mackenzie was ready, and although he wasn't able to get a ton of energy-based abilities, he was able to gain a lot of it, and did use some of it to good effect, like with the Marvel. Unfortunately, he only hit Tamiyo, which wasn't going to help him too much. Maximus's Zur deck has already made me smile, since using that Mystic Reflection to make Mika's creature come in as a copy of one of his enchantments was amazing. This was the only time that I saw it, so hopefully he'll play it again in the future. I also learned in this game that Zur's ability doesn't last until end of turn, it's just permanent. That creature is animated forever. That's awesome. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., Multizone, Original Magic Art, and Alter Sleeves. But it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.